You got to take into the fact how the Canadians perceive this. And they are incredibly pissed off.
Here in Old Orchard Beach, roughly 40% of the tourists come from Canada, according to the Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber's executive director told us that those tourists make up about 30 to 40% of the revenue for many of the businesses here.
Yes, folks, Canadians did make up those figures in this small town in Maine, but unfortunately, thanks to Donald Trump effing around, now small business owners, Americans, are finding out because of the backlash they are receiving from angry Canadians, all directly anti-Trump. So let's break down this true microcosm of a story of what's going on in all of America right now. As a owner of a popular inn in Old Orchard Beach, Maine, explains how Donald Trump has caused him to lose 90% of his business as Canadian tourists, angry Canadian tourists, as we'll see, are disappearing and canceling their vacation after Trump's relentless attacks on Canada. Now, let's remember, great picture here, by the way, are not just him calling them the nastiest people on live television.
Look, I deal with every country, indirectly or directly. One of the nastiest countries to deal with is Canada.
But also his relentless attacks on their citizens via ICE, like this poor woman who was detained by ICE for 2 weeks, saying it felt like she had been kidnapped and she was stuck in a freezing cell. I'll drop the link to her harrowing story in the description down below. But with all of that, Donald Trump has wrought the consequences of his own actions, and the angry Canadian tourists are very clear. This is about Trump. Listen to this.
This has been a family business for 50 years. You got to take into the fact how the Canadians perceive this, and they are incredibly pissed off.
We met Sterling Morse in Old Orchard Beach, Maine. He owns the Point of View Inn, which is only about 150 miles from the Canadian border.
We have been here.
He says the majority of his regular customers are French Canadians.
Very traditional people, families that take the same room, the same dates every year.
Not this year. Sterling says most of his Canadian customers have canceled, fed up with President Donald Trump's antagonistic rhetoric toward Canada. There's the threat of tariffs, too, and lately Trump has suggested redrawing the border between the two countries.
It's affecting at least 90% of my business.
Are you saying you've had 90% of your business canceled this year?
Easily.
Point of View Inn?
During our visit, yet another Canadian called to cancel.
Listen, monsieur, you don't need to explain anymore.
This is every registration card from last year. This is the Canadian. That's my American. This just went away.
That's all you got now. That doesn't pay the bills.
Does not.
Best of my ability.
For Sterling Morse, it all snowballed shortly after Donald Trump's inauguration.
All of a sudden an email pops up. It's almost like, your phone, ding, ding, slow ding. It's people that have been here for 35, 40 years. You recognize that number. And it's like, I know why they're calling. And the anger is, in my eyes, incredibly justified.
Here in Old Orchard Beach, roughly 40% of the tourists come from Canada, according to the Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber's executive director told us that those tourists make up about 30 to 40% of the revenue for many of the businesses here.
I think we're still kind of seeing how many different industries this impacts. It doesn't just impact tourism, of course.
Over at the Alouette Beach Resort, owner Fred Kennedy hasn't seen a cancellation yet, but he's heard an earful from his Canadian customers. What are they telling you?
Well, their feelings are basically hurt. They don't like to be referred to as the 51st state, and they feel that they just want to express themselves and in sort of a nationalistic way. As a innkeeper, hotelier, I'm concerned with losing any guests. I'm sort of cautiously optimistic that things will resolve themselves as time goes on.
Old Orchard Beach is a seasonal town, so businesses have about 12 to 15 weeks to make their money for the entire year. Back at the Point of View Inn, Sterling Morse doesn't see any way he can make up that lost revenue this season.
You got to start thinking about the end game of 50 years of tradition, to be honest, yeah.
Like you would consider closing down, selling?
There may be no choice.
Sterling Morse, the inn owner who says he lost 90% of his business, went to school in Montreal and feels a real kinship with Canadians. He told me that their anger is justified and he appreciates their renewed sense of nationalism. He also told me that he has tried to convince some of them to change their minds and to come anyway, but he says they are standing firm with Canada. Randy Kay, CNN, Portland, Maine.
Right. And honestly, hell yeah. Good for those Canadians for standing their ground and standing behind their country, something Donald Trump could never do. But again, it breaks my heart to see real hardworking Americans getting screwed over by Trump's policies, and just his moronic, vitriolic hate towards other people. And this is exactly the type of stuff he will never address or never talk about because he doesn't care about these people at all. So I'll pass the question off to you. Where do you stand on this? Do you support these Canadians and standing up for their rights and their dignity by canceling their vacations here? And unfortunately, the question I least like to ask, but we kind of have to, do you think that stories like these will make any difference for MAGA Republicans or Donald Trump himself? Because clearly, they don't care about these people. They don't care about the pain that they are going to be feeling or that others are feeling because they have no empathy whatsoever, and it shows. Anyway, let me know your thoughts in those comments below, and please consider liking the video, dropping a comment, subscribing to the Really American channel. For Really American, I am Kenny Hesse, and I will see you guys in the next one.